The views and opinions expressed on More Peace, Please are those of the host and her guest. The information presented is strictly for general information purposes only. But the person who exhibited harmful behavior did so from a place of trying too hard. That's all it was. They were trying too hard. So often we are trying so hard to be people that do not exist, in this plane of reality. Welcome to More Peace, Please, because sometimes we just have to ask for more peace. Please. On this podcast, my guests and I will discuss different ways to access peace, while also acknowledging how difficult peace can be to obtain and maintain. I am your host, Dominique Davis, also known as Brown and Bindi, trauma-informed yoga teacher and practitioner, weekend musician, and content creator. Welcome to my little corner of the internet. We're all friends here, so kick off your shoes, relax your feet, and let's just see if we can ask for a little more peace. Please. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of More Peace, Please. I am your host, Dominique Davis, also known as Brown and Bindi. I cannot believe that this is episode number 10. 10. We are in the double digits. This is our first milestone. And, it took about 10 episodes for me to figure out how to record without the audio sounding crazy. So hopefully this episode we can mark off consistent audio quality. Fingers crossed. But yeah, everything's pretty peachy. This podcast has really become such an escape for me. I'm currently in school. I'm getting my master's degree, and being able to switch gears and have these conversations with people or do these solo episodes where I explore subject matter on exploring peace, it's really nice because what I'm studying isn't the most peaceful subject matter. So it's really nice to have this little project to come back to and to share with you. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. This week, I have been forced into observation mode. Due to some things that are going on within my personal life, I have chosen to step back and say, hey, I am just going to observe the events that are taking place, the things that people are choosing to say, the actions that people are choosing to take. And I am going to just observe and understand what the observation means to me. But within this observation, I will not be emotionally reacting, because sometimes we have to make the decision to shift into observation mode if we have a specific goal in mind. I do have to say that my least favorite thing about being an adult is dealing with the politics that exists in every system we inhabit as adults. Inhabit. And every system we inhabit as adults, there are politics. And that has been my least favorite part of maturing and growing up. There are politics within family systems, workplace politics, school politics. I mean, there are even church politics, right? My least favorite lesson growing up has been learning that there may be individuals who rank above me in the systems that I find myself in, who are, hate to say it, extremely emotionally stunted. Maturing is realizing that hierarchies are not based on one's dedication to healing or emotional maturity, but on more concrete attributes such as skills or the resources that person can offer. I'm not trying to trigger anyone, but we're going to take a small walk down memory lane and talk about Dom's first job, because that's where I learned this lesson. My first job, I was 16 years old, and I was a waitress at Steak and Shake. The only triggering thing about this story is the ridiculousness of humans. That is all. Do not fear. But I'm 16, I'm a server, I'm learning, And I'm surrounded by people who are anywhere from twice my age to 3 to 4 times my age. And the commitment, the commitment to chaos, the commitment to dysfunction. I remember being 16 and observing my environment like, whoa, this is not how I want to live my life when I get older. This is not what I want for myself. And this is no shade at all against anyone who may find themselves in the service based industry at an older age, because we need these jobs. We need you. This is more so a reflection of individuals who grow up and don't fully commit themselves to finding their own potential. Fast forward 16 years to present day, as I observe the situation that I find myself in right now, and it just feels like not a lot has changed. Ironically, wellness has become a buzzword. Triggers, trauma, growth, healing, all of that we are very familiar with because those words are all over our society. Bettering yourself, go to therapy, that is all over the place. So it's just kind of ironic that even though it's become so culturally popular to quote unquote heal, I'm not sure how many people are actually fully taking advantage of how accessible healing is now versus 16 years ago. I guess we just have to ask ourselves, is healing just a trend that we're partaking in order to stroke our own ego? Or is there an internal state that we know to exist that we may not have experienced yet, that we are doing the work to pull into our experience? Recently, I observed an individual who is in a position of power above me who displayed harmful actions without awareness of how their actions may impact the ecosystem that we are all a part of. Ironically, all of the work that I find myself in, all of the environments that I find myself in, are purposed in community service or in providing wellness. So when I was observing this individual, I was like, whoa, I don't know if I would have expected this type of behavior from someone in your job title, but hey, here we are. Here we are. And as I observed this individual, I started to understand what it looks like when we allow ourselves to grow older, but we bypass maturation, the steps required to actually grow up, to actually mature. When we choose to age without getting to the roots of our own dissatisfactions within ourselves and with life, what are we doing? We're just living within those dissatisfactions and finding contentment within a reality that isn't what we want. And of course, that's going to manifest not great behavior from within ourselves. And this is just a really long winded way of saying when you do not grow up, when you choose to not grow up, it's not cute. It is not cute. And I am saying it is a choice. Maybe even 16 years ago, it wasn't a choice, but today it is a choice. Wellness is as accessible, is the most accessible that it's been in the history of mankind. Even though we are not in a place where everyone can have access to therapy, everyone has access to YouTube. Everyone has the ability to go to the public library and print out pages of PDF documents that of their chosen self-help book. Yes, it takes a bit of extra effort, but what it really takes is the desire to grow. If you desire to grow, you will find a way to access your resources and grow. And of course, trauma is often the barrier between people choosing to change because change is scary. I would like to extend grace during this conversation to those who have experienced that level of trauma where change can immobilize. This is not directed at you. But for those of us because I'm saying us, because for a long time, I did not want to change. It took me bringing that baby into this world to change, losing friend after friend after friend, leaving job after job after job because of situations that I created, have even in college, experiencing things within college that I created. Took none of those situations were enough for me to say I need to heal something within myself. So I'm including myself in this. To want to change, there needs to be a desire. There has to be a desire. But once that desire is there and it is strong enough, the resources will become accessible if one commits themselves to pursuing the resources that are available to them. So today I want to talk about how hot girls heal. I would even argue and say in this day and age, you can only be a hot girl if you are healed. Our society, specifically Gen Z, has transcended traditional social norms like beauty standards and traditional definitions of success. No, Gen Z is not perfect. Millennials are not, no generation is perfect, but you have to give it to them. You have to give it to them. If we were to all jump into a time machine and go back 20 years and read what they were printing in magazines about women to see the behavior that was acceptable regarding how people were speaking to others of different races and what was normalized and what was broadcast on cultural television show, it was, we have come so far. We have come so far. So I would even say that in order to be considered a hot girl, there has to be a certain level of healing done, or else the kids are going to see right through you. It just seems like younger generations seem to value character over material flamboyance. And I think that's awesome. Now, a lot of us may say, my character isn't the problem, it's everyone else that needs to grow up. And I would think that's a great place to start. So, in this episode of More Peace, Please, I'd like to discuss finding peace within the uncomfortable parts of healing. Because journaling, yoga, and green juice is marketable, but the reasons why people plateau on their healing journey is because of their aversion to discomfort. So, let's talk about it. Okay, I know I said let's talk about it, but before we get into it, I do also want to mention that within all of the advice I'm about to give, that's why I love having a podcast, because I could just give all the unwarranted advice. But within all the advice I want to give, I am excluding two heavy hitters because you guys have heard it already. The two heavy hitters for healing. One, go to church. Go to church. This is not me telling you to go to church, but this is me echoing what society is telling you. Go to church. It's going to solve all your problems. There is a lot of stuff within church that will not solve your problems, that may even add to your problems. But the ability to be within that spiritual community there's no other experience like it. And when you find the right church that pours into you and gives you the ability to also serve your community, and serving your community with other people who have the same spiritual footing as you, nothing like it. So we're going to exclude church, and then we're going to exclude therapy, because you've heard that one too. Everyone's like, go to therapy, it'll solve all your problems. Again, therapy may not solve all your problems. It might bring up more problems depending on how many things you blocked from your consciousness. So I will be excluding church and going to therapy from the upcoming conversation. I'm a big proponent of going to therapy. Therapists are awesome. I do recommend you get you one, but I didn't want you to listen to this conversation and there is my alarm to pray. Please hold. Okay. I didn't want you to listen to this conversation and then say, she didn't mention go to therapy, or she didn't mention go to church. She must not believe in those things. So yeah, just a little tidbit. Okay, first, I want to talk about relationships. In order to be committed to healing, you have to be able to extend love to other humans, even when it's not easy, even when they are not lovable in your perspective. To still love when people are not lovable. Now, this relationship point is part one. It's part one of 2 points. The second point will come a little bit further down. But The way that we love is a reflection of how much healing work we have done within ourselves. When we get caught up in modes of thinking that imply that everyone else is the problem, we have already lost the plot. Everyone else can't be the problem every single time. As I mentioned earlier, before I had my son, I was just falling out with everyone. It was like a 10-year streak of just falling out with people over and over and over and over again. And before I had my son, I was just like, this is just life. But when I was holding my son and looking at him, I can't remember the exact moment. I can't remember what happened. But what I think probably happened was the characteristic within me that led to me creating mayhem in my own life, it probably came up. And because I was holding this little person, I realized that that characteristic was not sustainable. And I think that maybe when we are the problem, even if we don't want to acknowledge it, I think that maybe subconsciously we know. Maybe subconsciously we know because the way that we're treating others is not the way that we would want to be treated ourselves. Also, if you're listening to this and you knew me before my kids, I'm sorry. Whatever I did, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh gosh. Okay. So, what is the solution? What is the solution to wanting to heal, but you have a hard time coexisting with other people? You find yourself consistently finding yourself within conflict. I'm going to say a couple of things. The first is expanding your awareness to understand that at times two people can be right about something. Oftentimes, two people are right about something. It is not necessary to see things as black and white, as so concrete. We must make space for a little bit of abstract thinking and allowing ourselves to believe that two people can be right at the same time. So if we disagree with another person, there's no reason to get defensive. There's no reason to have to prove your point because their point is just as valid. And let's just say for the fun of it, this is the second point. Let's just say for the fun of it, they're not right. You hear the point and you're like, no, I've studied this. I studied this for years and they are wrong. Is it possible to let someone else be wrong and to still love them and to still allow them to be who they are and exist where they are without trying to change them? Is it possible? It is so beautiful what type of life you can discover when you begin to learn how to coexist. And again, this is just me speaking to a past version of myself. Okay, so the next thing that I would like to touch on is the concept of mentorship. Transitioning into your healed girl era, your truthful, honest healing era is allowing yourself to be mentored, allowing yourself to be coached. How resistant are you to allowing the viewpoint of other people into your awareness? Healing is next to impossible when we believe that we are right about everything and that an expert opinion is never warranted. It took me a long time to learn this because I can say confidently now, I'm pretty smart. I struggle learning in traditional ways. I'm very bad at math. So for a long time, even though I'm very creative, I did not believe that I was smart. But I can say very confidently now, I do believe that I am smart. And that's something that I've been accepting over the past few years. And during my healing journey, I've been accepting that I am a intelligent individual, but that's also come with a lot of ego. And I've had to learn, I've had to learn that I can be intelligent and I can still need mentorship. I have a mentor and I have a therapist, but let's just talk about mentorship. Often we think with our hearts. Humans are emotional creatures. And when we are consistently thinking with our hearts, Our choices may not always align with the purpose that God has placed on our lives or the purpose behind goals that we've set. If we are consistently thinking emotionally, it can be harder, it can be more and more difficult to achieve said goals. I have a yoga teacher mentor, or I don't even know how I would say that correctly, but my mentor guides me in becoming a better yoga teacher. And I am very emotionally attached to my practice as a yoga teacher and my relationships with my students. And having my relationship with her, where she's able to honestly help me recognize when I'm falling out of alignment with the teacher that I want to be, it doesn't always feel great. It doesn't always feel great, but it keeps my eyes on the prize. And that's something about healing. When you are 100% dedicated to healing your full self, that's acknowledging that you're going to heal parts of yourself that you didn't know were broken. And that all happens when you say, I'm here, I'm fully in it. And when you're fully in it, you might not know what you're healing, but your eye is always on the prize. The prize is that consistent healing, recognizing when parts of you do not align with what you know to be a healed version of yourself and being honest. And sometimes, because of that emotional factor, it can be difficult to be honest, which is why a mentor is awesome. This person should be in alignment with your value system so that they can show you when you fall out of alignment with those same values. Okay, we are back to talking about relationships. This is part two of the relationship aspect that we talked about a couple of points ago. We have grown to accept that we're not always right. And even if we are, we can still coexist with others who disagree with us. What's part two? The next step would be finding a community that values healing. Healed people don't use other people as placeholders. I'm going to say that again. Healed people do not use other people as placeholders. Our relationships are not meant to just help us pass the time, but instead, our relationships are meant to help us mature and develop into more loving versions of ourselves. Ultimately, this happens when you can continue to show up and be a part of a community after the novelty wears off. Can you show up and pour into others after you've had a disagreement with someone in the group? Are you willing to be vulnerable and trust this community, even though they may not look, act, or think the way that you do? Are you willing to be a part of communities that may not necessarily offer you any type of exchange, where they may not be able to give you something that you find of value aside from love? Finding a community that genuinely values loving others is a foolproof way to grow past any healing plateaus you may have experienced in the past. Let's talk about some examples. There is, of course, church. We talked about that earlier. But let's also talk about online book clubs, running clubs, Pilates studios, yoga studios. But here's the gag, because you might be like, I've gone to all these places. I'm a part of all these things. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. You have to actually talk to people. You have to actually be vulnerable with people. Are you able to be vulnerable with people, even though they are not the shining examples of perfect? Are you able to still soften and have a genuine, rooted, grounded conversation? Okay, shameless plug, girlies, shameless plug. I am going to have the first Brown Girls Heal. It is a trauma-informed yoga virtual meetup in July. We are going to get together on Zoom and we are going to introduce ourselves and we are going to have a little chit chat. And then we are going to talk about what trauma actually is. And then we're going to do the smallest amount of yoga. And when I say the smallest amount of yoga, I mean some breath work and maybe 2 to 3, maybe 4, maybe poses. It is not a flow class. It is a class for us to start to plant some seeds, to build some community, to speak about where we're currently at, and then to practice a little bit of yoga. And then after we practice a little bit of yoga, we are going to talk about what came up. So this is not a traditional yoga class. This is more of an awareness building community that I am starting. And I hope that you choose to join and come. So yeah, the link to that will be in the description of wherever you are listening to this podcast. Or if you want to read a little more about it, you can go to www.brownandbindy.com/brown girls heal. Yeah, because that could be your community too. Okay, shameless plug is over. The last point. This is the last point, and I feel as though if you focus on this point, all the other points happen naturally. I think. If you disagree, go ahead and tell me and, open my awareness. But this last point is going to be very simple. Didn't say easy, just simple. The last point in healing, honestly, is allowing yourself to be. Just allowing yourself to be who you are right here in this moment and loving that person. Insecurity is at the root of all childish behavior. I don't want to speak too much on the situation that inspired this episode because you never know who may be listening. But the person who exhibited harmful behavior did so from a place of trying too hard. That's all it was. They were trying too hard. So often we are trying so hard to be people that do not exist, in this plane of reality. We construct ideas of who we want to be and blindly pursue this identity, completely abandoning the person that we already are. When this person was saying what they were saying and doing what they were doing, I was observing and I was thinking, wow, this is unlike the person I was interacting with up until this point. I wonder what part of this person's consciousness these actions are coming from, or subconscious. Because I believe that when we see people cutting up, showing their entire behind, I don't know if they're really there with us in the moment. I don't know if they really hear the things they're saying or if they're consciously doing what they're doing. It's almost like blacking out and programs, defensive programs take over. Now, this could be reading too much into it. I don't know what that person has going on, but when we let these programs take over, these programs are resorting to, when we say programs, that's intentional because the programs have data that have been programmed. So these programs that take over our behavior are programmed to understandings of the people that we think we want to be and what we think we need to do to be that person. I am all for setting goals. I am all for having aspirations. You guys know this. But when I set my goals and when I have aspirations, I see the journey from a vantage point of being at peace and in love with who I currently am. And I don't see a different version of myself achieving these goals. Yes, I will be a different version of myself because that's just what happens as time goes by and we have new experiences and as we grow. But I don't try to predict who that person is going to be so that I can cosplay that person. And I laugh because I used to do that. But when we are cosplaying the healed version that we think will be, we're just creating more mess and more disconnect. When in reality, it's so much harder. It's so much harder to be at peace with who we are right now in this moment. It's easier to pretend that we're the version of ourselves that we'll finally like. But don't do that because you won't like that person either. If you don't like who you are now, you will not like who you grow into. So just start here. Allow yourself to be who you are and start to become aware of when you start to cosplay a version of yourself that you think you need to be. This means learning to identify when you are uncomfortable within your own body. When the way you physically show up feels forced, stop and think about how you truly want to wear your hair and what type of outfit you would like to put on, not what other people want to see. When the words that you're saying feel like a script written for someone else, stop and ask yourself if you truly believe what you're saying. And if not, why are you saying it? Start to identify when you are pursuing that egoic idea of yourself and learn to pump the brakes. Because what if the person that you are right now is worthy of existing just as they are? Okay, that's all I got for you today. That's all I got. What a fun episode. I was just a yapping, but this was fun. I hope that you enjoyed listening to it because I enjoyed making this episode. Yeah. Ooh, okay. Well, that's all I got for you today. So thank you for listening. Don't forget Brown Girls Heal if you are interested in that. www.brownandbindy.com/Brown Girls Heal. Can you believe that we only have 3 episodes of this season left? This is number 10. This is a 13 episode season. I can't believe I even got this far. Like what? And I think that this episode is it's a testament to me finding my stride. I think I'm just so excited. I'm already planning season 2. It's all good. It's lit. Okay. I'll see you next time. And remember, you can always ask yourself for more peace, please. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of More Peace, Please. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Want to keep up with me? Well, that's a coincidence. I want to keep up with you too, boo. Best way to stay in the know is to follow me on Substack at Brown and Bindi. You can find me under the same handle on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat. Until next time, remember to seek more peace, please.